for Kpandai won the elections with a decisive margin of 3,734 votes. A decisive margin. Not double the gates, not triple the bit, these quadruple the gates. 3,734 votes. The petitioners' own evidence when they went to court. In fact, they were challenging just 41 polling stations or so. And the votes involved in that 41 police stations, we are just talking about 500 votes. 500 votes. 500 votes cannot conceivably overturn a margin of 3,734 votes. No. This is primary school arithmetic. Yet, this judge brazenly voided the entire elections. How? By what calculation? By simply ignoring the affected results requirement. The court leaped recklessly from there were irregularities to void the elections. This is not law. This is not justice. Clearly, this is injustice. Ladies and gentlemen, our elections manual is explicit. Where proving irregularities could not possibly change the results, the elections must stand. The Supreme Court affirmed this in Ennis versus Electoral Commission. An election is not to be invalidated where the outcome manifestly reflects the majority will. The judge discarded these sacred principles. The judge spat on binding precedent. This is judicial vandalism. Now again, let me refer you to Regulation 48 as well. The judgment declares the petitioner absent from the relocated collation center, a fatal breach of natural justice. But here, the true outrage that exposes this judgment as a sham, the court deliberately, systematically ignored Regulation 48.2 of CI 127. And what does CI 127 says? Let me state the law clearly. Regulation 48.2 states unambiguously that the non-attendance of candidates or agent does not invalidate acts lawfully done by the returning officer. This is what Regulation 48 says. Yet, the judge had to void the entire elections, annul all the entire elections. Why? Because the candidate wasn't there. The agents were not there. So the judge had to annul the result and call for a rerun. This is black letter law. It exists for a vital reason. But the reason why we have Regulation 48.2 is to prevent a candidate's deliberate absence from becoming a weapon to void elections. The Electoral Commission's witness affirmed this under cross-section. Yet, this judge scandalously ignored it, allowing a general principle to brazenly trump an express statutory provision. This is not interpretation. This is dictatorship from the bench. Clearly, in this case, you could see that the burden of proof was cynically manipulated by this judge. Observe the court's cynical double standards. It refused to find the petitioner led the vandalism that forced the EC to relocate the collation center, claiming there were insufficient evidence. It declared it would not speculate. But then, miraculously, when assessing whether irregularities affected the results, speculation became acceptable. Vague, unsubstantiated assertions were deemed sufficient. The petitioner produced no credible alternative tally. He called no agents from the disputed polling stations. He never demonstrated how the 500 votes could overturn a 3,734 vote lead, almost 4,000. Yet, this judge granted the most drastic relief possible, voiding the entire elections, disenfranchising thousands, and rewarding the petitioner for his evidentiary failure. In many shocking ways, this is perversion of burden of proof. It is a classic case of brazen judicial malpractice. Let us now examine the most consequential failure, its reckless abandonment of the constitutional duty to act proportionally. Section 19, again, let me make this, let me refer you to Section 19 of the PNDC Law 284, gives the High Court only 3 tightly framed choices: cancel the elections, seat another candidate, or dismiss the petition. This is not arbitrary menu. It is sacred, limited grant of power, because these choices directly touch Article 42, right of every citizen to vote and to be counted, and the court is constitutionally bound by Article 23 and 296 to use that power cautiously, fairly, and in a manner that preserves the voter's real choice whenever the law makes it possible. Ladies and gentlemen, our jurisprudence is unequivocal on how this duty must operate. In Ennis versus Electoral Commission, the court found the returning officer had breached the law. Yet, instead of voiding the entire pool, it used Section 19B to declare the petitioner duly elected, emphasizing that a whole election could not be invalidated if the result still reflects the majority will. This principle was elevated to the highest level in 2013 presidential elections petition. The Supreme Court, adopting the Midhurst versus Lau test, held that proving non-compliance will not justify voiding a pool if the election was really and in substance conducted under the law and result was not and could not reasonably be supposed to have been affected. This is settled doctrine of substantial compliance. Elections are to be upheld where breaches do not overturn the people's choice. The court itself accepted many defects were mere administrative errors, clerical errors, and that could be addressed through scrutiny or recollation under the law. The petitioner's own originally reflected this reality. He sought targeted relief in only 41 polling stations, not a wholesale cancellation of the constituency's choice. The evidence was clear. Every single Form 8A existed. The results was gazetted. The raw materials to ascertain the true will of the people were all present and available. Despite this, the court straight away went to the harshest of the three Section 19 outcomes, a full constituency-wide rerun. Its justification that some collation materials were destroyed. How can this be? The petitioners themselves presented 41 polling stations as disputed. And then the judge said, oh, you brought 41, don't worry, I'll give you all the 151. How ridiculous. But the judgment provides no convincing reason why the loss of these materials made it possible to reconstruct the lawful majority from the existing Form 8As. It offers no justification for why narrower remedies, a scrutiny, a retabulation, or at most a limited rerun were inadequate or even considered. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the core, unforgivable flaw, where our case law insists on proportionate vote-preserving remedies. This judgment defaults to nuclear relief, where President command caution to respect the sovereign will. This court exercised caprice. It did not use Section 19 in the careful, constitution-compliant manner. It acted not as a guardian of constitutional rights, but as an agent of their destruction. This is not a lawful judicial order. It is a fatal constitutional dereliction. Put differently, this is not justice. This is judicial brutality against the sovereign will of the people. Now, let me turn your attention to the most dangerous precedent in this judgment: rewarding violence. Now, we arrive at the most outrageous, the most terrifying part of this abomination. It was the violent criminal act of the petitioner's supporters that forced the relocation of the coalition. The petitioner marshaled his supporters to go and destroy electoral materials. They vandalized the center. They destroyed materials. And this created terror. And that is why the Electoral Commission had to relocate the coalition center. And now, the judge declares that because the petitioner was not notified of the new venue, a venue made necessary by his own supporters' violence, the entire elections must be voided. Do you comprehend this perversity? Do you see this catastrophic precedent? There is an ancient, sacred legal principle: an evildoer must not benefit from his evils. The judgment violates that principle entirely. It rewards violence and chaos. The message is chilling. If you are losing an elections, create chaos, create tension, destroy the materials available, then run to the court and claim your rights have been violated. That is what is happening. If this stands, it will destroy our democracy. It will turn every elections into battleground. It will make thuggery profitable. This is not law, certainly. This will result in the death of our democracy. We categorically reject this monstrous principle. We call on the appellate courts of this land to uproot this poison before it infects